prepare. Welcome, everyone. I'm Chris Rasmussen, board member of the Moose Jaw District Chamber of Commerce, and I'm very pleased to moderate the candidates' political forum this evening. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're on traditional lands referred to as Treaty 4 territory, and that the city of Moose Jaw is located on Treaty 4 territory, original lands of the Cree, Ojibwe, Saulteaux, Dakota, Nakota, Lakota, and homeland of the Métis Nation. The Moose Jaw District Chamber of Commerce is and remains neutral. We do not endorse any candidate or party. Although candidates were contacted and given an opportunity to participate in the All Candidates Electoral Forum and any accompanying communications. We would like to thank the following candidates for participating tonight. For Moose Jaw North, we have Tim McLeod of the Saskatchewan Party, Kyle Lichtenwald of the New Democratic Party, North Hunter of the Saskatchewan Green Party. For Moose Jaw Wakamow, in attendance tonight is Greg Lawrence of the Saskatchewan Party, Melissa Patterson for the New Democratic Party, and Darcy Jensen of the Conservative Party. Before we get to it this evening, we have some rules to cover, and we hope that the candidates will honor them. Each candidate will have a maximum of 5 minutes to introduce themselves, and this will be timed. They'll be advised when they have about 30 seconds left. If candidates reach the allotted time, we will mute the presenter's microphone in order to keep this fair to everybody who takes part. Each candidate will be asked to respond to 3 predetermined questions they receive in advance. Questions will be accepted through texting. You can text us at 306-690-7100 via the online chat on the Moose Jaw District Chamber of Commerce Facebook page and through the Moose Jaw District Chamber of Commerce live YouTube channel. Please note, not all questions that are asked through those forums will be answered tonight. We simply don't have enough time. We ask that questions be respectful. The questions received through the chat function will be presented to the candidates by myself. Candidates will have a maximum of 2 minutes to answer a question, and again, these will be timed. If a question is directed to an individual candidate, the other candidates on the forum tonight will have 30 seconds to respond to that same question. Candidates will each have a maximum of 3 minutes for the final presentation at approximately 8:15. Please be respectful to all concerned, and remember, due to time constraints, please keep to these scheduled times. Now the deadlines are out of the way, we will start with opening remarks. Prior to the event going live this evening, we conducted a random draw for the presentation slots, and we will begin and carry on through this order. First will be North Hunter, second, Greg Lawrence, third, Kyle Lichtenwald, fourth, Melissa Patterson, fifth, Darcy Jensen, and finally, the sixth spot will be Tim McLeod. At the end of the forum, we will reverse this order for the final 3 closing minute remarks. So let's begin. North Hunter, the forum is yours. Please kick off with your opening remarks.
Hello, my name is North Hunter of Saskatchewan Green Party, and I'll be representing Moose Jaw North. I stand for diversity and to represent everyone in the province, no matter what your age, what you look like, or what your background is. The Green Party stands to make sure that everyone in the province, and especially in Moose Jaw, where the constituents are, will be represented in the government and that all their needs will be met. As the Green Party does not believe in vote whipping, we will make sure that Moose Jaw's concerns are first and foremost whenever going forward in Parliament or in government, wherever it is. I am currently in my 3rd year of my university degree at the University of Regina. I'm in a Bachelor of Health Studies Kinesiology degree and plan to go on for further education. I come from small town Saskatchewan by Regina, Lumsden. I grew up there and I've been raised there. I continue to stay in the area. I plan to stay here for the rest of my life. Small town community is important to me, as is giving back to my community. Growing up, I made sure to volunteer every day as much as I could. And to my record, I still have, on average, have volunteered at least 2 hours per week of my life ever since I was 8 years old, mostly through Lions International and through Scouts Canada. Growing up, the motto, "We serve and leave the world a better place to be found," has been very important to me. And that's why I want to make sure going forward. And that's why I stand for the party that I stand with. Thank you.
Thank you, North. Our next opening remarks will be presented by Greg Lawrence. Greg.
Let's start that again. My name is Greg Lawrence. I'm in the MLA for Moose Jaw, Wakamow for the last 9 years. First thing I'd like to do is thank Moose Jaw Chamber of Commerce for putting this on, and I want to thank Chris for moderating it. One of the things we want to do this election is we need to talk about a strong economy. And the reason we need to talk about a strong economy is more jobs. And these more jobs are used to build strong communities and strong families. And that's the foundation of our province, is strong families. If you don't have strong families, you're not going to have strong communities in a strong province. Brad Wall used to say, the start of the sentence was, we need to have a strong economy. But the end of the sentence was, we need to have a strong economy to help those who need the most help. We want to make life more affordable for families, for seniors, and for young people. We have the second best job creation record in Canada since 2007. And if you saw the unemployment numbers come out, or the employment numbers come out this week, we actually have the lowest unemployment rate in Canada. Scotiabank today announced that Saskatchewan has the best outlook for all the provinces going forward coming out of our COVID. And speaking of coming out of COVID, that wasn't something that government did. That was something that people of Saskatchewan did. And I want to thank the people of Moose Jaw and the province for doing such a good job keeping our numbers some of the lowest in the country. They've done a fantastic job of keeping the majority of us safe. The masking up is very important when we go out in public, and it's great to see people following those guidelines when the social distancing can't be put in place. And it is very important that we continue doing this so we don't get buried under a second wave. And one last thing, I want to thank the people of Moose Jaw, Wakamow for supporting me over the last 2 terms, and I'd like to ask for their support again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Greg. We will continue on now with Kyle Lichtenwald, and I will just make a comment before you take your spot, Kyle. We are having and have had reports of some internet issues with the streaming service. We apologize in advance for that. But Kyle, it is now your turn. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Kyle Lichtenwald, and I'm running for the New Democrats here in Moose Jaw North. Thank you to everyone who's tuning in at home, and to the Chamber of Commerce and Chris for organizing this year's Candidates Forum. These are so important as part of the democratic process, and to be able to share with everyone the various ideas and perspectives available is so important. With COVID-19 this year, the election is necessarily different, and our campaigns have taken on a very different shape. We can't gather in one room like we used to, but we are still able to hold this Candidates Forum, and that's something truly special. You know, I'll start with something, a little bit of an intro to who I am. I grew up in Regina and moved here following my graduation from the University of Regina Business Administration program. Prior to moving here, I had a number of jobs in the business field. My resume boasts of work with advertising at SaskTel, in collections at Canadian Revenue Agency, clerical work at Heartland Livestock. I've also worked in retail, in restaurants, and even as a substitute newspaper delivery person. I've always had to work hard and never shied away from it. As it turned out, I moved here and recognized the Moose Jaw would be an excellent location to set up my own office as the Saskatchewan sales agent for a national uniform and safety clothing company. I had a lot of success in sales and saw all of our great province and made many connections that proved valuable even until now. Teaching had always been on my radar ever since graduating high school, and going back for my education degree became a reality once I was settled here and married to a teacher. I continued my sales career while attending university and picked up extra work as a teaching assistant on both undergraduate and graduate level courses. In addition, I was employed as a research assistant with University of Regina's Center for Academic Technology. Upon graduation from education, I enjoyed teaching in each of Moose Jaw's schools and meeting the families, and then eventually signed a contract with Holy Trinity. It was after a few years of teaching that I realized I wanted to enroll and learn more from a Master's of Education program at the University of Saskatchewan. You see, I'm always looking to soak up more information, new learning, and experiences that help build who I am. Over the years, I've been involved in a number of committees. I was on the board of Sask Outdoors for over a decade, including time as treasurer and president. I've been on the St. Joseph Parish Council and the Social Justice Committee for nearly as long, as well as numerous committees with Saskatchewan Teachers Federation, our local Holy Trinity Teachers Association, and within the school division itself. My wife and I, Jolene and I, we're investors in a small business, and we see opportunity for more of that here in Moose Jaw. I love Moose Jaw because it's truly a friendly city, and each of the neighbors who I've met over the past month have proven that to me. Life is good here, but I see so much potential for new industries and to attract passionate people. My family ties me to Moose Jaw. I don't ever see myself living in another place. This is where we want to raise our children and where I'd love for my children to raise my grandchildren. I want to shape the future of this fair city so opportunities can exist for our children to prosper and lead healthy and happy lives. But you know what? We've been through a lot as a province in recent months as we grapple with this pandemic. In this challenging time, Saskatchewan people have stepped up to keep each other safe and help each other out. But even before the pandemic, life was getting harder as our province faced a recession. As I've been knocking on doors, I've heard from people concerned about new costs associated with COVID, the impact on local business, the rising costs of living, and hardworking people that are living below the poverty line. And in fact, 1 out of 4 children are living below the poverty line, and that concerns me. I've heard about mental health and addiction problems in Moose Jaw, and about health workers who've been out without a contract for more than 4 years. There's a need, people are talking about a need for more care in long-term care homes and more nurses so that our grandparents and elderly neighbors can remain in their homes for as long as possible. You know, I've seen firsthand the lack of funding for education and how all the students' needs are not being met with current resources. We need more educational assistants and occupational therapists and to meet these needs. And our classrooms are overburdened and over capacity. We've faced years of cuts and families are feeling stretched. They're worried about how to pay the bills because the Sask Party hasn't made it easier over the last 13 years. People are worried what 4 more years of cuts will do to our province. Scott Moe and the Sask Party have promised austerity with this next budget. Cuts and poor services definitely won't attract growth. Now is not the time for more cuts. That's not the right approach. It slows down our economy and it hurts our people. That's why the New Democrats are committed to a different vision, one that will get our economy moving and help people through this challenging time. A government that invests in our province and puts our people first. I'm looking forward to sharing that vision with you over the course of this forum and the discussion with my fellow candidates. Thank you very much.
By the skin of your teeth. Nice presentation. Thank you very much, Kyle.
Thank you.
The next presenter this evening will be Melissa Patterson.
Hello, and thank you. I'm Melissa Patterson. I'm our new Democratic candidate for Moose Jaw Wakamow, and tonight I'll tell you a little about myself. I'm a longtime table games dealer, supervisor, and facilitator with Casino Moose Jaw. Born and raised here, I've grown up in Moose Jaw, and I'm now raising 3 young women of my own here, and I want to see them, along with everybody else here, succeed. As well as being passionate about my work and dedicated to my family, I'm also active within my union, the Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union. I sit as the Chief Shop Steward with Casino Moose Jaw, and I serve as the Treasurer with our union's Local 455. I also sit as an alternate on the Saskatchewan Joint Board for the RWDSU. I've been knocking doors across Moose Jaw Wakamow for several months now. and I'm hearing your thoughts and concerns. One thing has been made very clear. Things are getting tougher here. The cost of everyday essentials continues to rise. You probably see it every time you look at your grocery bill. Families that I've been talking to are trying their best to make ends meet, now having to pay more for kids' clothes, diapers, and food, all while juggling their responsibilities and wondering how are they going to find a little bit extra for things like school supplies, birthday presents, or Christmas gifts. These are struggles that I also understand because I'm facing them too. The message I'm hearing loud and clear is simple. Life is getting tougher while the Saskatchewan Party continues to cut jobs and services here in our city, and no one seems to care about us regular hardworking folks. I also hear from many seniors who are feeling forgotten. Seniors living on fixed incomes have seen the Saskatchewan Party increase the cost of prescriptions by putting PST on their often life-saving medications. Seniors living in public housing are feeling unsafe in their own homes, often worried about the rising cost and the concerning conditions of long-term care, and wondering what that might mean for them if and when they have to make that tough decision to leave their homes. Seniors in Saskatchewan, though, will no longer be ignored by a Saskatchewan New Democratic government. I will be your advocate and voice on these issues and more, but we will also appoint a seniors advocate to make sure that in every government decision, your voices are heard. I've consistently heard from the people across Moose Jaw Wakamow that they feel like they don't have a voice in government. For example, we didn't hear a word from our representative when the Wakamow Valley Authority, an agency that works to maintain and protect one of the most cherished landmarks in our beautiful city, was stripped of its funding. But I will be that voice for us, because we need a representative who will stand up, speak out, and not be afraid to fight back. We also need a representative that will fight against further cuts, government privatization, and giving large contract to out-of-province, often out-of-country corporations. We need to stand up to Scott Moe and his Old Boys Club of corporate donors and establish a Saskatchewan First procurement policy, a policy that will help create jobs and opportunity here at home. We've committed to reversing the Saskatchewan Party's PST on new construction builds to keep our construction workers working, just one of the many ways we're planning to put people first. I plan on being that representative, the one that will fight for investments in Moose Jaw, investments in our healthcare, and the services that every single one of us rely on, making sure that our children and grandchildren have safe classrooms to go to for them to learn and grow, and making sure that our voices are heard on the issues that matter most to us and our community. I want to close my remarks with this. When we get regular, hardworking people around the table where decisions are being made, that is when we will see real change. I want to be your voice for Moose Jaw Wakamow, and I have never been accused of being quiet. I'm humbly asking for your support to be our member of the Legislative Assembly for Moose Jaw Wakamow. It's time to put people first.
Thank you, Melissa. Viewers at home, just a reminder, if you do have questions for the candidates, there are a couple of ways that you can do that. You can use the chat function on Facebook, or you can use the chat function on YouTube to submit those comments. Again, not all comments will be presented tonight due to time constraints. Our next presenter will be Darcy Jensen. Darcy. Darcy, I would ask you to unmute your mic, please.
Good evening, Chris. And fellow candidates, I will start again, and thank you very much for being here. And I want to welcome everybody and say that how much of a pleasure it is to be here this evening. I was saying how much it is also a pleasure to be on Treaty 4 territory. It's something that I was born in Moose Jaw. I was born and raised there. My family was I lived on the 1000 block of Dominica Street East. My dad still lives there. I have my roots grow deep in that city. I have been with the Conservative Party now, and because I was with the NDP, I switched to the Conservative Party and decided that the Conservative Party stood for more values, more traditions, more of what the values that I had, in favor of what they believed in. I also decided that we needed to have change. The SAS Party has ran a deficit for far too long, has ran complete job that were down, and numbers have not been good. My wife and I grew up in Moose Jaw. Our families were there to 1998, and then we moved to Regina. Just because we moved to Regina does not mean that my values are not in Moose Jaw. I returned to Moose Jaw. We are there quite a bit. My dad, who is 87 years old, still lives in the house that I grew up in. I am there weekly. My wife and my 4 children. We are there visiting quite often. We also are avid visitors to the city for events. We believe that Moose Jaw is the city that should be having somebody that is a conservative candidate that stands for conservative values, conservative morals. So we believe that we have what that offers. I also believe that Moose Jaw is the greatest city in Saskatchewan and should be the city that has always been home to me. And I know for a fact that we will put Moose Jaw on the map if we are elected into power. It's wonderful to have this opportunity to run as a candidate for Moose Jaw Wakamow. And that is something that I believe will be serve Moose Jaw well when we are elected into power. It is my pleasure to be here, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Darcy. Completing our closing remarks this evening will be Tim McLeod.
Thank you, Chris. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Moose Jaw Chamber for hosting this event. And I also want to congratulate my fellow candidates on their efforts during the campaign so far. Thank you all for being here. This is an exciting opportunity for all of us. With my opening few minutes, I'd like to invite the audience to consider something tonight. I'd ask you to think about who it is you're being asked to vote for, not merely what are they saying. What I mean by that is you need to ask yourself, who do you trust in this election? And the answer to that can often be found behind what a person has done. For example, some of you may already know that I've been a lawyer here in Moose Jaw for the past 15 years. I've been the chair of the public school board. You may also know me as a volunteer coach of minor sports, possibly as a member of the Hillcrest Church. If you look at my resume, you'll know that I've worked in the justice system, helping at-risk youth, conducting research for provincial court judges, and I've presided over dozens of hearings between landlords and tenants. My biography might also tell you that I'm a senator for the University of Saskatchewan, or that I've been a guest lecturer at the University of British Columbia on the subject of legal rights and equality of access. But these are all things I have done. They are not who I am. Who I am can be found behind what I've done. First and foremost, I am a husband and a proud father of 3 children. It is my family that drives me and motivates me to do everything that I do. The core of who I am was shaped by two wonderful parents who both devoted their careers to the education system in this province. When raising my brothers and I, my parents demonstrated for us the meaning of hard work and integrity. In looking at my career and my history of public service, I hope you'll see that I'm a tireless advocate who has consistently fought for those who put their trust in me and ask me to represent them. And I hope that those who work closest to me would describe me as hardworking, honest, and a loyal colleague and friend. This is who I am, not merely what I have done. Similarly, when you're being asked to choose between political parties in this election, I would invite you to consider who you can trust by not merely what they're promising, but look behind the words. Ask yourself, does this party's rhetoric match their record? When they're making a promise, can they afford to keep it? If they say they'll invest in schools, hospitals, or healthcare, does their record demonstrate that they will? Because that is who a political party is. It's not just words, but the actions behind the words. When the Sask Party first took office in this province, they made 140 promises to the people. And they kept all 140 of those promises in the first term. Since that time, the Sask Party government has built or replaced more than 50 schools, they've built brand new hospitals, and they've hired hundreds of doctors and thousands of nurses. The population of this province has climbed steadily, and our economy has grown stronger under the Saskatchewan Party government. Most recently, under Scott Mow's leadership, this province has navigated the COVID-19 pandemic, and we've become a positive example for others to follow as we recover jobs and strengthen our economy faster than nearly every other province in this country. These are the things the Sask Party has done, so please let that be the measure upon which you ask the question, who will they be for this province moving forward? I can say that the Sask Party will be the government that keeps their promises. They will be the government that invests in schools and our communities and our public services. They will be the government that will continue to grow our economy and to provide strong fiscal stewardship. The Sask Party government will be a government of strong leadership that supports the people of this province and the diverse industries within it. A Sask Party government will not support policies that reduce jobs and increase taxes. They will make no lavish promises that they cannot keep. That is who the Sask Party is. I'm excited to be a part of this team, and I sincerely hope that each of you will trust Scott Mow, the Saskatchewan Party, and myself when you decide who it is you want to represent and lead this great province for the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim. We will now move on to the section of this evening. And as we mentioned earlier, the candidates were provided with 3 questions before the forum in order to prepare some remarks. So we'll begin with those questions. And while the candidates prepare and get their remarks gathered together, I'd like to encourage those watching on Facebook to either use the YouTube or Facebook comment function. You can also text in to the number at the bottom of your screen there, and we will go through questions and present those that we feel is a good fit for the forum this evening. Again, not all questions will be presented, just in an attempt to keep things nice and clean tonight. So let's begin. Our first question this evening. With more business being done out of the office and in the home setting, Moose Jaw has a unique opportunity to capitalize on the new economy created by the pandemic. By attracting professionals to our community with affordable housing and taxes compared to large cities, as well as friendly atmosphere, Moose Jaw could become a new tech hub for Canada. These professionals could work from their homes for businesses around the world and still enjoy the quality of life that Moose Jaw provides. What is your party's plan to attract and grow more investment in these sectors? And again, due to the draw before the broadcast started this evening, Greg Lawrence will have the first crack at this question. Greg. Greg, your microphone, please. We're all still getting used to this new platform. Don't worry, Greg.
There it is.
There we go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
I can, and your 2 minutes will start again. Thank you.
Okay. Excellent. Well, small business is the backbone to our economy, and they will continue to face significant challenges without the proper establishment of a foundation for recovery and resilience. During these uncertain times, if re-elected, the Saskatchewan Party government would like to put money back into the residents of the Saskatchewan's pockets, and help lead our province into a strong recovery. Our party is committed to making our province the best place to have a business and to foster economic growth. One of our platform announcements last week was the introduction of a 3-year small business tax rate reduction as part of our plan to support our economic recovery from COVID-19. If re-elected, the tax rate would be reduced from 2% to 0% beginning October 1st, 2020, then move to 1% beginning July 1st, 2022, and back to 2% on July 1st, 2023. This will save the average small business over $6,100. Difficult decisions were made with the PST in order for us to shift away from our resilience on natural resource prices. And I've got family in the oil field. So yeah, it's really affected the province of Saskatchewan. And to ensure that services that we're providing across the province are sustainable into the future, the current circumstances show that while difficult, these decisions were necessary.
Thank you, Greg.
And have allowed.
Kyle, I would address the same question to you, please. Again, you have.
Okay, I'll just get off mute.
2 minutes, please.
Okay. Thank you very much. As I reflect on your question, I'm reminded of my own story of settling here in Moose Jaw. I have an understanding of why people come and why they sometimes leave. You know, the pandemic has changed a lot about our society, including how we work. It's opened up new opportunities for us in Moose Jaw to attract new skilled professionals in search of affordable quality life and high quality public service. However, I don't think Wakamow is interested in supporting us here in Moose Jaw and helping us find innovative solutions and new potential. You know, even before the pandemic, he ignored the problems that face Moose Jaw families. He cut healthcare and education, and this hurts our families. Further, we've seen major infrastructure, every single project go to out-of-province companies. We need those public dollars staying in our economy, not draining away. And you know, speaking of keeping money and jobs in our Moose Jaw economy, the SAS Party has moved Crown Corporation offices and shipped good jobs away from Moose Jaw. Since the 90s, we've lost 200 provincial jobs in our city, while Prince Albert has gone up by 800 provincial jobs. There's something wrong with that, and we need to speak up. In fact, to quote Mayor Tolmie in a letter from on March 12th to Premier Moe, the mayor said, Moose Jaw has been treated unfairly in comparison to other cities when it comes to provincial job numbers, police officer numbers, grants in lieu agreements, and funding for various infrastructure such as a hospital. Wakamow is satisfied, but Moose Jaw families are looking for a change. They're ready for leadership that seizes opportunity and finds innovative ideas. The New Democrats have a plan to invest in services that families depend on and jumpstart our economy with good jobs. We can use SAS Polytech to train more ICT grads who are often scooped up after their program. In addition, we want to eliminate interest on student loans so that young people can seek post-secondary education. We have so many creative ideas to improve our city and invest in people. We will help Moose Jaw reach our potential by putting people first.
Thank you, Kyle. Melissa, please.
Hi there, thank you. Well, I would just reiterate what Kyle has already said there. The pandemic sure has made life a lot more challenging for us here in Moose Jaw. But the reality is we were already stretched and stressed long before the pandemic hit us. And it seems like, as Kyle mentioned, that Wakamow isn't interested in finding innovative solutions. He has our emergency rooms bursting at the seams, cutting money from our classrooms. In fact, he's even made housing less affordable by cutting supports that helped low-income families, much of our Moose Jaw Wakamow constituency, to help pay their rent. Wakamow even refused to give renters across this province a break on their monthly rental during the pandemic. He seems to be satisfied with the status quo, but Moose Jaw families sure are not. We're ready for change. We're ready for leadership that seizes opportunity and finds fresh starts and ideas for the challenges of this time and going forward. We have a plan, like Kyle said, to invest in the services that our families are depending on: healthcare, education, mental health, making sure that our economy can jumpstart with good jobs, keeping our tech sector moving and more competitive, and looking to improve the recognition of our foreign credentials to allow new residents and Canadians to come and more fully participate in our economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Darcy, please.
Thank you. There's no doubt that the pandemic has hit everybody very hard and can hit anybody. President Trump, even a month ago, was diagnosed with COVID-19. Moose Jaw has to be promoted as the wonderful city that it is. The absolute beautiful city it has become, and the vast history and amazing culture that it provides. Not only does Moose Jaw offer citizens the small city feeling, it brings safe and also offers ideal living for everyone, no matter what working stage that your work life may be in. With our party's plan to offer a manufacturer's tax credit, I will promote Moose Jaw as a hub city that could be used as a center to have living in a city that offers affordable housing, lower taxes, and a beautiful history with a friendly atmosphere. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Darcy. Tim McLeod, please.
Thank you. Well, I think Greg has already summarized quite a bit about what the Sask Party has done and will continue to do in response to this question. I would note that stronger economies are what make attractive environments for investment, and a strong leader is where you start when you're looking for how to build a strong economy. And we certainly have that already here in Saskatchewan with Premier Scott Moe. He's demonstrated leadership through an unprecedented time. My fellow candidates have already touched on the pandemic and the strains that has put on the economy. And we need look no further than Premier Moe for what he has done in terms of his leadership through that pandemic. We have led the country in terms of job recovery. 87% of people were able to continue working through the pandemic, and we have already demonstrated that the unemployment rate is the lowest here in Saskatchewan. So strong leaders make strong economies. Strong economies are attractive for investment, and that's what we already have with Scott Moe and the Saskatchewan Party.
Thank you, Tim. It is supposed to be North Hunter's turn next, but North is on the broadcast now. And so North, it is your turn to go, please.
Hello, can you hear me? Yes. With the Green Party, we firmly
North, if you
believe
can
in a
hear me,
guaranteed.
yes, your turn, please.
Sorry? Can you hear me? Yes. For the Green Party, we do believe in a strong economy. The idea of sustainability is not just of the environment, it is also of our economy, it is also of the people. You cannot have a sustainable planet without sustainable people to go on forward to it, because we cannot witness a sustainable planet without people there who can witness it strong, with their health intact, and with everyone at increasingly greater quality of life. That is the goal. The goal for Moose Jaw is to go forward with making sure that everyone in Moose Jaw, especially as we're increasingly going online, is able to have broadband internet and increasing internet access across Moose Jaw, and going further into the rural area around Moose Jaw to make sure that people can expand Moose Jaw and making it so that we have job opportunities, not just in the center of Moose Jaw, but also increasingly outwards. We want to make sure that we have a guaranteed livable income. So that way people who currently are only able to go into job opportunities because they have CERB can continue doing that as they continue to have those kinds of payments where they do not have to worry about having minimum wage jobs, and they can go forward to kind of jobs that actually advance the economy by going and having their own businesses, starting up local businesses and furthering their own local economies. The goal is not to support large corporations and rather local corporations. We want to make sure that people are able to start their own businesses and going forward can actually afford to pay for shelter, can pay for food, and continue to go towards Saskatchewan and especially Moose Jaw. We'll make sure Moose Jaw is an attractive place to go towards by having an expanding healthcare plan, pharmacare plan, dental plan, and making sure our seniors are taken care of to the best of our abilities. We want to be a beacon across Canada. That is the goal of Tommy Douglas's plan, and we're to continue it because that is what Saskatchewan's always been about.
Thank you, North. That is your 2 minutes. So that is our first question, and we will now continue on with our next. In recent years, a divide has emerged between Western Canada and Parliament Hill in Ottawa. Can you please explain how your party intends to address the troubles that Saskatchewan communities are facing right now when working with the federal government, such as the carbon tax, pipelines, the oil and gas sector, new restrictions on hunting firearms, and apparent Western alienation? We'll begin with Kyle, please.
Okay, well, thank you, Chris. You know, I'm a proud Canadian, and we know it can sometimes feel like Justin Trudeau isn't listening to Moose Jaw or to Saskatchewan families, and I've heard it on doorstep time and time again. Everybody's tired of that. New Democrats, though, we love this province, and we're going to stand up for Saskatchewan families by putting people first. We will advance Saskatchewan needs. So Scott Moe, he likes to say he's playing hardball with the federal government, but he hasn't actually got much done for our Saskatchewan families. He's failed to come up with a made in Saskatchewan plan for greenhouse gas emissions. He had a chance, but he ended up getting us stuck with Justin Trudeau's federal carbon tax. Scott Moe had a chance for a made in Saskatchewan plan that would see us keep those resources here in our economy. You know, in 2019, in November 2019, Scott Moe refused to sign a joint letter with Ryan Miley, asking the federal government for a carbon tax exemption on drying grain. I don't know why, but that seems like a good idea to me. He's made other big threats to push back against federal transfer payments and other programs, but in reality, he hasn't done much more than send a couple letters. Scott Moe is leaving crucial federal money, and money that would help us on the table. And that is money that could help us. You know, he refused to sign on to an agreement that would see Saskatchewan get a share of $10 million to subsidize bus routes. And then that's after he sold the STC and left people stranded across Saskatchewan. We have a plan to grow our economy with a made in Saskatchewan emissions plan focused on wind, solar, geothermal, using our trained SAS Polytech grads. But more than anything, Saskatchewan families need a leader who's going to stand up for their interests and work with the federal government to get the best deal for Saskatchewan. Our approach is focused on people. We wouldn't leave federal money on the table, and we would work with them to create programs and services that help our families. We want to make deals while standing up for the people of Saskatchewan because...
Thank you, Kyle. That's your time, Kyle. Thank you. Melissa, it is now your 2 minutes.
Saskatchewan have sometimes felt like we are not being heard by the federal government. But Saskatchewan people and the Saskatchewan New Democrats support the development of our natural resources. And we know that pipelines are the safest way to move energy exports to the markets to get us the best price. We know that Saskatchewan has been stuck with an Ottawa-based carbon tax now for nearly 2 years, and people are feeling stretched and stressed. Scott Moe, though, keeps pointing fingers while letting you and your family pay the price. Scott Moe and the Sask Party have spent more than a decade doing nothing to address climate change in our province. Like Kyle mentioned, allowing our greenhouse gas emissions to grow and giving us the second worst jurisdiction in the country when it comes to energy efficiency, which is really the easiest place to start on emissions reductions. Saskatchewan New Democrats, though, will work with and support the construction of pipelines to get our energy to market, moving us to 50% renewable energy by 2030 and to 100% power generation from non-emitting sources by 2050. We will be a government that knows that an economy-wide carbon tax isn't what's best for our families here in Saskatchewan, and will develop a Made in Saskatchewan climate change plan. Our approach as Saskatchewan New Democrats is focused on people. We won't leave federal money on the table, and we'll work with the federal government to create programs and services that can help our Saskatchewan families, putting people first.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Melissa. Darcy will be next. Darcy, your 2 minutes.
As a Conservative government, what we would want to do is try and have very good open dialogue with the federal government on matters, whoever is on Parliament Hill in Ottawa. Unfortunately, it still looks like it will be Justin Trudeau, but hopefully that changes soon. We also would be open to the use of the peace order and good government clause in Section 92 of Canada's Constitution. The federal government was to pass legislation that we believe is in violation of the Charter of Good Government clause. We also would be open to fighting it in court, depending on the legislation that we believe introduced in legislation that the province was being subjected to. As Conservatives, we stand for the people of Saskatchewan, and when I am elected, I will be standing for the people of Moose Jaw as your MLA. The Conservative Party is also looking for independency. We are not wanting to be reliant in Ottawa. This is why we are wanting to bring in our own police force and move away from the federal RCMP by establishing a provincial sheriff deputy system, which would allow communities to set up voluntary forces similar to that of a volunteer fire department. Of course, with stringent peace officer training for our volunteers. We also want to fix the equalization formula, which is completely unfair. We would want strongly encourage the federal government to open the charter and have this fixed. Equalization transfers amount for about 5.5% of the Government of Canada's annual budget. Approximately $450 billion or $725 billion in inflation-adjusted dollars has been transferred over the past 63 years. In 2019 alone, equalization transfers exceeded $19 billion, with nearly $13 billion going to Quebec.
That's your time, Darcy. Thank you very much. Tim, you're next. When you're ready, please, your 2 minutes begins.
Thank you, Chris. I find it interesting that some of the opposing candidates have indicated that we're stuck with a carbon tax, and they suggest that they're putting Saskatchewan people first. That they're putting Saskatchewan people first in their rhetoric, but in their actions, they're supporting the carbon tax that they claim that we're stuck with. So I'm seeing a disconnect there that is difficult to swallow. The Sask Party is doing a lot more than nothing to address climate change. They have the Prairie Resilience Plan. I would encourage my candidates opposite to read it. It does a lot more than what they might otherwise think. Premier Moe has demonstrated time and time again that he is standing up to the federal government on behalf of the people of this province. He supports the rights of lawful firearm owners. He is standing up for Saskatchewan industries and Saskatchewan families who are being hurt directly by this useless carbon tax that does nothing to reduce emissions. We have a Prairie Resilience Plan that would meaningfully help the environment without killing jobs and raising taxes.
Thank you, Tim. North Hunter, your 2 minutes is set to begin.
The Green Party believes in centering first and foremost where our constituents are. Just as with addresses, we go Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, Canada. While the federal government is important and we will maintain friendly relationships, as do all Green Party members, We maintain a healthy and friendly relationship with all other parties. The first goal, first and foremost, is always make sure we center ourselves in our community, because community is what is most important. As with all missions, we aim to have ourselves be self-sufficient, not just from the federal government, but also into the future. We have 10 years, as the IPCC has noted, to make sure that we can sustain ourselves into the future. It's not just our generation that matters here, it is future generations. And we want to make sure that Moose Jaw is poised to take care and to encapsulate on all our future economies that will be based on renewable energy. We cannot keep going from our dwindling non-renewable resources, but we can use that to propel ourselves into making sure that Saskatchewan, which is widely placed to be the best place in the world, one of the best places in the world, to have solar and wind power, be the place where we can keep ourselves at the very top and actually have Moose Jaw and Saskatchewan be at the top of Canada and of the best in the world in terms of sustainability. What we'll do for Mission Possible is not just guarantee jobs in Moose Jaw, we'll guarantee jobs across Canada, because people want to come to here to make sure they are able to calculate on the jobs going forward with mechanics, to make sure that all vehicles are going forward and going into renewable energy, and in making sure we're all going forward, having our homes going sustainability wise, making sure everyone is able to go forward and keep our resources Saskatchewan based and Canada based. Our plan is to have not just carbon tax, make sure that that carbon tax isn't so far.
Thank you, North Hunter. That is your time. The final response for this question will be Greg Lawrence. Greg, when you're ready, please.
Thank you very much. Maybe the NDP has changed its mind on oil. I seem to remember their leader speaking at an anti-oil rally and being strongly in favor of a carbon tax when he was first elected. And let's take a look at something Jagmeet Singh said. He said, "I've said this before and I'll say it again. Climate leaders don't buy or expand pipelines." Jagmeet Singh tweeted that out on August 30th in 2018. And, Miss Melissa Patterson liked that one. And then even newer, he tweeted, "Maybe we should just get off oil." She liked that one. And that was just this year on February 6th, 2020. And you take a look at the oil jobs right here in Moose Jaw at Gibson Energy, using Saskatchewan innovation, Saskatchewan developed technology. They increased their production this year by 25%. And increasing that production, their overall carbon footprint went down by 20%. That is good Saskatchewan innovation. That's good private innovation. That is a Saskatchewan company doing well, employing people right here in Moose Jaw in the private sector, providing those good jobs. And with the NDP's plan to shut down oil and pipelines and not really producing that, I grew up in the oil field. I had to move around a lot as a kid because the NDP were in power during all those years. And I think if you take a look, your best predictor of past behavior or of forward behavior is your past behavior. So if you take a look at the NDP and the way they tax the oil companies to the point where they...
Thank you, Greg. That's your time. Thank you to all the candidates for answering those questions. We will now move on to our third prepared question. Small businesses are the backbone to the economy and will continue to face significant challenges without the proper establishment of a foundation for recovery and resilience. If your party forms the next government, would your party reduce the general corporate income tax rate from 12% to 8% to remain competitive and make the PST recoverable for businesses? For this, we will start with Melissa Patterson.
Thank you, Chris. Well, it's no doubt that small businesses are the heart of our communities and a very key part of our growing economy. But Scott Mow's cuts to small businesses are a bad idea at any time and right now they just seem downright dangerous. This government was missing in action when it came time to supporting small businesses during our pandemic, refusing to give them a break on their rent, delaying the introduction of a financial aid program for months, and then rolling out a program that was actually too complex to help small businesses here in our community. But we knew that things were already getting tough for Moose Jaw businesses, even before the pandemic hit. We saw Scott Moe and the Sask Party raising power bills on businesses and families by more than 57% since 2007. We know that businesses can't afford more of Scott Moe's cuts. They're ready for a change. A new Democratic government would reinstate startup loans for small rural businesses, giving them a strong head start, help businesses stay connected using a rural reconnect program that can provide high quality internet and cellular service, and work with small businesses and industry representatives on a province-wide Buy Saskatchewan campaign. We don't have to accept just the Scott Moe status quo of cuts. We can do better, and the Saskatchewan New Democrats will. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Darcy, please.
Thank you. You know, I couldn't find the exact answer to this question in our platform, so I took it upon myself today to call our leader, Ken Gray. When I called him, I said, this is one of the questions that they're asking for the platform tonight. And I said, Ken, will we lower our income tax from 12 to 8% to remain competitive and the PST recoverable for businesses? His answer was a resounding yes. Saskatchewan is the most affordable in the country. We already have PST being lowered and eliminating double taxation, but we would definitely be lowering it from 12% to 8%. And that is a guarantee from the true conservatives that we will do whatever it takes to stimulate this economy, and we will do whatever it takes to get Saskatchewan back on track. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Darcy. Tim, when you're ready, please.
Thank you. I find it interesting that I keep hearing comments about cuts and cuts that are coming from the Scott Moe government. Scott Moe has made it clear there will be two cuts made if the Saskatchewan Party retains government. The first will be to everyone's power bill, and the second will be to the small business tax rate, which will fall to zero in the first year and then gradually be reintroduced over the next 3 years. I would remind everyone that the Saskatchewan Party increased the personal tax limit, removing almost 112,000 Saskatchewan residents from the provincial income tax roll entirely. So when you talk about tax cuts and benefits of tax cuts, we have 112,000 families that aren't paying any taxes because of moves that the Saskatchewan Party have already made. And as I said before, demonstrating what they will do in the past, what they've done in the past demonstrates what they will do in the future. That is who the Saskatchewan Party government is, and what people can expect from a re-elected Saskatchewan Party government. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. North Hunter, please.
To start off, we would like to say for the Green Party that we do not believe that taxes are something to be feared. If you're looking at the countries with the greatest quality of life in the world, they do tend to have the highest tax rates, but that is not to be feared. For what we should actually be looking at is that because taxes are taxpayer money meant to be for taxpayers to have what they desire and the services that they want, the Green Party believes in a citizens' assembly where all citizens of Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, and Canada, as it increases wherever the constituents are, will be able to decide on where their taxpayer money is going towards. So while this tax cut we do not quite believe in a tax cut. What we do believe is more representation and where that money is going. Because when you're looking at taxpayer money, this is not, it's going towards your services. For every $1 that you put into healthcare, you earn $3 that would have been saved from the cost of healthcare spending that would have otherwise gone into it. These are your services, and it's going towards libraries, it's going towards roads, it's going towards all those things that actually make it easier for small business to survive. What we'll actually be making sure is that larger corporations will be taxed more, so that way the burden is less on small corporations. And as small corporations are able to actually pay for their living wage, as their employees are not having to worry about living day to day, as they're not having to demand higher wages from their employers, because they'll have a guaranteed livable income. And as we're to be increasing, making sure that everyone has shelter, making sure that all seniors have shelter, making sure that everyone in a community is able to actually take care of their needs, small businesses are able to grow, and they will not have to fear tax cuts. Those tax cuts are to be, those taxpayer money is going to go towards exactly what they desire and what they will be looking forward towards in their own citizens' assembly, proportionally represented. And that's what we believe in.
Thank you, North. The next to answer this question will be Greg Lawrence, please. Greg.
Well, under the Saskatchewan Party, personal and business taxes continue to be among the lowest in the country, giving us the Saskatchewan advantage to attract new business investment, create jobs, and keep the cost of living affordable. A re-elected Saskatchewan Party government will continue to monitor our tax competitiveness during these economic recovery. Under a re-elected government, there will be no tax increases. And this is totally opposite of what the NDP did when they were in power. Over the 17 years they were in power, they raised taxes 21 times. And they talk about cuts to education and healthcare. Let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about the 176 schools they closed. All the teachers, the TAs, and the janitors they got rid of, closing those schools. Closing 52 rural hospitals, including the Plains. Think of all the doctors and nurses that they fired. And all the 1,200 long-term care beds for our seniors that they closed. Now we're adding long-term care spaces. We're hiring 300 more continuing care aides to work in our long-term care facilities. We're increasing the seniors income plan. And talking about the seniors income plan, when the NDP were in government, they didn't touch it for 17 years. They left it at $170. We've raised it once, and we're raising it now to $360 per month. We're reducing the seniors' ambulance costs by 50%. And also, we're eliminating it for inter-hospital transfers. So if they have to take a ambulance from Moose Jaw to Regina, they won't have to pay for that. Now, maybe if we had some of these rural hospitals still open at the NDP.
Thank you, Greg. That's your time. The final response to this question from Kyle Lichtenwald, please.
Okay, well, thank you very much. You know, as an investor in small businesses, I know how important they are to communities. I know about, that the wages they pay support the families of the kids that I teach. I know firsthand how hard the families have been hit by the pandemic and how hard it's been for so many people. I know that small businesses were suffering even before the pandemic, and we want to grow them and grow it in Moose Jaw. And these cuts to small businesses are a bad idea at any time, but right now they are dangerous. The SAS party, they're talking about how Tim said, no, there's not going to be any cuts. But we have a finance minister who promised austerity, who promised us cuts, who and we know there's backroom deals that threaten to sell our crowns. These are assets that I want to keep for our children. We can't afford to go down that road, and that's foolish thinking. You know, I think the government was missing in action when it came to supporting small businesses during this pandemic, and we can do better for all those people. And when we mention a break on power bills, it's interesting that the SAS party has seen our power bills increase by 57% since 2007. So isn't it generous that they're going to give us a cut now? I don't know. But you know, we want to sign contracts with Saskatchewan companies. We want to make sure our Saskatchewan, our Moose Jaw contractors and our tradespeople of Saskatchewan are the ones that are getting these infrastructure projects. We want them to be spending their money in our economy and not having it drive away with Alberta or Ontario or even Texas license plates. We're sending our jobs out of province and putting our local businesses at risk. And this isn't sustainable for our economy. We need to do better. We can't accept these cuts. I think we can do things, new tech jobs. We can invest in solar and wind. We can have green.
Kyle, that's your time. Thank you very much to all of the candidates for answering those questions. We will now move on to taking questions from the floor. Pardon me. Again, please use the comment function on Facebook or YouTube. You can submit a short question for consideration. There's also the text line that you'll see on the bottom of your screen. Please in a text. So our first question has actually come through a text message, and the question is, what is your party's view on mandatory masks and vaccines? So if I haven't lost my place on our big board here, it will be Darcy Jensen who answers first. Darcy, when you're ready, please. You have 2 minutes.
Our party's platform on this, or stance on this, would be that we believe that you should be wearing a mask when you are in distance of somebody within 2 meters. If you're going to be in crowds, absolutely wear a mask. It's this virus is dangerous, absolutely. It's something that you need to take caution with. You need to be vigilant about it. You need to definitely avoid all cautions and take all cautions into with everything that you would do in every aspect. It's something that that you would want to do is make sure that you are being diligent about your safety and making sure that you are following all protocols when you're around people or public or around any crowds. It's something that you need to be absolutely careful about. But as far as a policy, it's not it's not something that we would make mandatory. It's not something that we would introduce as a law or as a policy, but it's something that we would definitely want people to be diligent and follow safety protocols. Absolutely.
Thank you, Darcy. Next will be Tim McLeod, and I'll repeat the question because you did not receive these in advance. What is your party's view on mandatory masks and vaccines? Tim, please.
Well, the Saskatchewan Party's message on this has been consistent throughout the pandemic, and that's that we need to take the advice of our Chief Medical Health Officer. We are not medical specialists. We are not the medical professionals. We have our own opinions. We have our own personal views, beliefs, but the reality is to govern this province, you've got to take the best advice available from the professionals in the field. And the Saskatchewan Party government has consistently done that, taking the advice of Dr. Shahab. As the virus changes, as the numbers change, that advice changes, and we continue to take his advice, and it has worked greatly for this province. If you look at our numbers, our case numbers are among the lowest in the province. We have flattened the curve as we were working through this pandemic, and our economy is recovering again as one of the leaders in the country coming out of the pandemic. So the policy is to follow the advice of the Chief Medical Health Officer, and that has successfully worked for this government and this province. And again, it is a credit to the people of this province who have successfully followed that advice for the most part. and we see the fruits of those labors and those efforts now in low case numbers and strong recovering economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Next will be North Hunter. And again, the question is, what is your party's view on mandatory masks and vaccines? North.
The Green Party stands behind our experts. We stand behind peer-reviewed statistical analysis and making sure that what we are doing is in our best interests, for our best interests into the future. Right now, it seems scary. This is a new situation that many of us have ever thought that we would ever encounter. But then again, think back to your first day of kindergarten. Think back to your first time when you realized growing up that, oh, I need to wash my hands after I go to the washroom to protect not just myself, protect others as well in my daycare, in my preschool, and going forward into the wider general public. Just as we have making sure that soap and water is accessible to everyone, I think part of the reason why a lot of people, especially in my hometown community, are really worried about mandatory masks or mandatory vaccines is the cost of paying for it. But we want to make sure that these will not just be something that you have to pay for. It's something that we'll all pay for because we'll all benefit from it. In the same way that soap and water is available to everyone where we're going out, or how seatbelts are in every single car that is there for you, to protect you, to help you protect others. We're going to make sure is that these are not only just available, but they are mandatory in the same sense that growing up, when I was in elementary and when I was in high school, when I was in university, we have vaccines made available to us that we can have, and there is made mandatory that we can have those made available to us and that they are covered under our Saskatchewan health plan. And that is what we believe which should be going forward, is that this is to protect you and to protect others going forward. We want to make it so it's highly accessible and preferable for you to go forward and have it. We want to make sure that everyone knows why we are doing this and not scared of why we are doing this, and because it is needed and it's something that really helps us and will help us going forward. Listen to the evidence, is that's what we all say.
Thank you, North. Next will be Greg Lawrence. The question, what is your party's view on mandatory masks and vaccines? Greg.
Well, I think Tim answered the question pretty well, but I'd like to start off with thanking all the hardworking healthcare professionals that are wearing a mask all day long. You've got your doctors, your nurses, your caretakers in the hospital. Everybody working in the hospitals are wearing them. You have your long-term care aides wearing them. You have all the people in the grocery store wearing some sort of mask or protective shield. So I think we need to thank them for helping keep us safe. Like Tim said, we're not doctors. We listen to what Dr. Shahab and his team advises us to do. And if you cannot maintain that 2-meter distance, wear a mask. If you're going into a store, wear a mask. It's pretty straightforward. If we need to, this virus isn't going away anytime soon. So we need to be vigilant, carry a mask with us, wear it, and just be safe out there.
Thank you, Greg. Next will be Kyle Lichtenwald. Again, the question, what is your party's view on mandatory masks and vaccines? Kyle.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. You know, this pandemic, we're all living with so much uncertainty. At the beginning of beginning of lockdown in March, I was wearing a mask. I've been wearing a mask in public places, full stop. We were expecting a baby at that time who was born at late in June. So we were being extra cautious. But I think that's important for all of us to take this very seriously. You know, in the classrooms, there's a lot of anxiety amongst parents and teachers and students, and we're overcrowded. I mean, we're down to 15 maximum in a gathering, but yet we have schools that are full of kids, and we've seen cases in schools throughout the province. But you know, wouldn't you feel more comfortable with a doctor in charge, a leader as a doctor, and a medical expert, somebody who pays attention to the evidence-based research? That seems valuable to me, especially when you contrast that with Scott Moe, who takes pictures, not physically distancing, not wearing a mask, and he posts them online. That's poor leadership. We need a leader who's going to take this seriously and not be a bad example, a poor example for our province. We need to focus on safety. And I think it's rich that Greg comments and thanks the healthcare workers. They do so much important work. But our SEIU workers have been without a contract for 4 years. We need to show these people we appreciate them by getting back to the bargaining table and getting them a contract. So let's keep our curve down. Right now we see it spike, but we can do better. We can do better in Saskatchewan to keep our kids healthy, keep our families healthy, and keep our grandparents healthy. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kyle. Completing the response to this question will be Melissa Patterson. The question again, what is your party's view on mandatory masks and vaccines? Melissa.
Thank you. Well, it's no doubt that Saskatchewan families are worried. We're worried about our health, we're worried about our kids, we're worried about our businesses and our futures. And we want leadership that relies on the experts. We want, especially now, as we move closer to a second wave, we want to know that the people making the decisions are experts in their fields. As Kyle said, Dr. Ryan Miley is a pretty great choice. Scott Moe and the Sask Party haven't really delivered the kind of leadership that the Saskatchewan families are craving, that we've needed to guide us through the pandemic. He failed our back to school plan, he failed the test on testing for us, and he's putting families at risk by pandering to anti-maskers. The advice is clear. Wear a mask, stay safe, keep yourself safe, keep your family safe, keep your friends safe. Ryan Miley and the Saskatchewan New Democrats, we're putting the health and the safety of families first. We know that real leadership is about listening to the public health experts and doing everything possible we can to support our families and our businesses so that Saskatchewan can come back stronger than ever. It's so, so important. Thank you,
Melissa. That should be all of our candidates for that question. And we will now take a question from Facebook. This one coming from Mike Bashu. As an elected official, would the candidates consider revisiting the grant in lieu cuts that were made several years ago, requiring municipalities to raise property taxes? Again, I'll read the question again. As an elected official, would the candidates consider revisiting the grant in lieu cuts that were made several years ago, requiring municipalities to raise property taxes? For this question, Tim McLeod will go first, please. Tim?
Thanks, Chris, and thank you to Mike for the question. Over the course of the campaign, we've been door knocking. I've been the nominated candidate for a year and a half now, and in that time, we've knocked over 13,000 doors in Moose Jaw North alone. This is not an issue that we are hearing on the doors. This is not a matter of concern for the vast majority of the Moose Jaw North voters. What we are hearing on the doorsteps overwhelmingly, even from traditional NDP supporters, is that Scott Moe has done a fantastic job of leading this province through the pandemic. We have not seen a second wave. We have not seen all of the fear mongering that the NDP candidates seem to want to try and dredge up here. These are not issues of concern to the people of Moose Jaw North. Things like the out of province contracts. I mean, in the last year, we had $466 million in contracts that were awarded in this province, and 410 million of that went to Saskatchewan companies. So like these are not fears that are justifiable. They're not concerns of the people that we've spoken to. And again, there's over 13,000 doors that we've hit. Those are not the things that we are hitting. What we are hearing is that the economy is a concern for folks to recover, and we have a great leader who has led us through the unprecedented time, and our economy is recovering as a result of his strong leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. North Hunter, your 2 minutes begin.
The Green Party highly believes in making sure our constituents' concerns are of the utmost importance. We want to make sure that if this is a concern of the local constituents, We'll make sure this grant in lieu of cuts that are made several years ago, requiring these property taxes to be raised in Citizens Assembly so that everyone in this community can debate them and can look forward to what they expect from me as a political leader or as an elected official. We want to make sure what the government is actually doing will be what you actually would desire. If you would like, please feel free to contact Saskatchewan Green Party at any of our Facebook pages, emails, to raise concerns that you have going forward. And as you're going forward, making sure that what you're looking for is something that we can raise up towards everyone in the community and asking about what they would desire to see from this going forward. We'd also like to make sure that the cost of infrastructure is paid for by everyone who needs to go forward for it, making sure that shelter is paid for. If these property taxes are like something that is prohibiting your ability to live and be able to pay for shelter, that is of utmost concern for the Green Party. Make sure that everyone is guaranteed shelter. No one deserves to be homeless, and no one deserves to live in fear that they will not be able to live on a property because of inability to access financial wealth. If your concern is that property taxes are being raised, that will be a concern of ours. Thank you.
Thank you, North. The next to answer the question will be Greg Lawrence, and you should still see it on your screen. Greg, when you're ready.
Thank you, Chris, and thanks, Mike, for the question. There's a few things I want to point out. One of the largest tax cut in Saskatchewan history was when we removed the education portion of the property tax off of your taxes. And that was the largest tax cut in Saskatchewan history. There's a reason we fund 100% of the schools now when we do that. There was tax revolts under the NDP. The other thing I want to talk about is the increase in funding to the city. Under the NDP, it was around $2 million a year, and they had to guess every year what they're going to get for municipal operating grant. Now they got the math 2 years ahead of time, and they are guaranteed 1% of the PST. So that means their revenue is up 142%. This year, it was around $6.5 million, $6.7 million. So when you introduce the largest tax cut, which had to do with property taxes, and then you increase the revenue sharing, this is a great question. But the other problem with the grant in lieu was it was a hodgepodge way of setup, and it was different for every city and every town and every village, and it was different for different utilities. So there was a problem in the details, and for a lot of these, they couldn't even find the contracts because they were made back a long time ago, and nobody had taken a look to update those. So what we did was increase revenue sharing across the board equally to everyone.
Thank you, Greg. Kyle, you're up to bat.
Okay, thank you very much for the question, Mike. You know what? In the same letter I referenced earlier, our mayor told me he was asking Scott Moe, why is the provincial government dragging their heels and giving us the funding that we need for our infrastructure projects? This was in March when we were shovel ready to do cast iron replacement for the pump house that was just re-announced again for a press opportunity. But the city of Moose Jaw, I don't know what the taxes have been decreased, because everybody I talk to, their taxes are going up, water bills are going up, sewer charges are going up. Everything's going up because we're losing funding from the province. You know, the initial municipal operating grant or revenue sharing was 1% of PST divided on a per capita formula to all cities. That was reduced by the province and to 3/4 of a percentage point of the PST. In addition to that, we installed photo radar on the Trans-Canada and Moose Jaw North here near where I live, and that we covered the cost of operation. We received the revenue from the fines for our city. That helped our city. And then the Sask Party came along and changed the legislation so now that they can take half of the fine revenue. That cuts into things of what we can afford in our city, the officers we can afford, and the other things that all those fines were going to. And so now our people are being charged with those fines, and the money's going elsewhere. You know, Fine revenue in the first year was 1.2 million after costs, and we're getting less than half of that now. The education portion of property tax is no longer dedicated to education funding, but it's going to general revenue funding. And it's not coming to schools. We need funding allocations lower, and that we need our property tax to be reduced. And Greg's saying that it's been going down, that they cut this, but we haven't been seeing it on our bills.
That's your time, Kyle. Thank you. Melissa, it's your 2 minutes.
Thank you. You know, the fact is, Saskatchewan municipalities are on the hook for more than $36 million after the provincial government has made those changes. The grants that compensated our municipalities were for revenue that they would have been able to generate if we had our own electrical and natural gas distribution systems. The NDP would neither freeze nor cut revenue sharing, and our proposal to remove the PST from construction labor would in fact help municipal finances. The NDP government will work with municipalities to address the pandemic's impact on revenue sharing, and we have committed to not raising taxes. Thank you.
Melissa, thank you for your time. Concluding this question will be Darcy Jensen. Darcy?
Thank you, Chris. And thank you, Mike, for the question. What I would say is that we would take a canvas of the citizens in the area that would be looking at revisiting this grant in lieu and see what their general response is and see if they would even want it before we put a lot of time and energy into this and see if we would want to have this put forward as a question for the citizens of that area. And at that time, if that's something that they are interested in, then we would decide that, yes, we would likely move forward on this, but not until we had the general population saying that, yes, that is something that they would look at. Thank you.
Thank you, Darcy. That will conclude that question. We will move on to another from the floor, this coming in the form of a text message. What do the candidates intend to do to support vulnerable people living with disabilities? Again, that question, what do the candidates intend to do to support vulnerable people living with disabilities? For this question, we will begin with North Hunter, please.
Hello. A reminder that the Green Party supports the guaranteed livable income to make sure that everyone can meet their basic needs to survive. We're also planning on expanding Medicare, pharmacare, and having a dental care plan. Our goal is that everyone will be able to start off and be equal in society in equity standard points, so that if you are starting off unable to live because you simply do not have the infrastructure in place to make it so you can actually participate in society, we want to make sure that society is made so that everyone can participate, because society becomes stronger when we have everyone able to work who wants to work, and we can go forward making sure everyone is able to contribute. We want to make sure that, just as in my hometown of Lumsden, where we pool our money together through the Lumsden Lions, make sure that our sidewalks were shaved down so our seniors could go forward, make sure our senior center was made in a way that our seniors wanted it to be, so that way they could continue to participate in our community, to make sure that our local heritage home, our nursing home, was made to have a huge garden, to make sure that they could have a standard of living where they did not have depression, where they did not have to fear what they were going to do. We want to make sure that everyone who has disabilities, who is any vulnerable population, has everything that they need to be able to continue to contribute to society, to do everything that they want to do to succeed. Everyone deserves to be able to live, and everyone deserves to be able to succeed in life, no matter what point of view, no matter where you start off from, no matter where you came from, no matter what you look like, no matter what you wish to do.
Thank you, North. Greg Lawrence, you're next on this question. Again, it should be up on your screen. What do the candidates intend to do to support vulnerable people living with disabilities? Greg.
Well, thanks very much for the question. Let's start off with what we inherited. When we took over as government, we inherited 440 people on a wait list, waiting for a place to live, waiting for supports. We eliminated that wait list. On top of that, a program that the NDP talked about a long time, and they do a lot of that. They do a lot of talking, a lot of promising, and never get the job done. We created the SAID program. SAID program is set up specifically for those living with disabilities. One of the things that we're doing to help those with that are deaf-blind is we're improving the deaf-blind services here in Saskatchewan by giving them a significant amount of extra resources to help them out in this process. Again, moving the people into the community is the way to do that. And we want to make sure that these people have all the supports they need and make sure that we're doing our best to support them.
Thank you, Greg. Kyle, your 2 minutes, please.
Sorry, I had to get off mute there. Okay,
That's all
well,
right.
thanks a lot. I was actually just at Regal Villa here this afternoon, and I was talking to some neighbors outside of the building there, and they were telling me some of the things that they're dealing with as people with disabilities, and you know, I was listening to their stories, and I kind of know where they're coming from because I know families that are dealing with similar situations. And we need to do a good job for these people. We need all the vulnerable people that are in Moose Jaw. So we have a plan to develop a disability strategy to ensure that everyone in Saskatchewan is able to reach their full potential. We want to be able to. We have a plan to build off of that. Is investing $5 million to create a poverty reduction strategy to increase support for housing first. And we know how important that home care can be for some of these individuals. And neighbors have told me that they need more resources, more supports at home, without having to move their relatives and their family members out of the home. They need more home care, and we need more nurses to support people staying at home and being with their families. And so we want to make sure that we're taking care of everybody who's vulnerable. I have real heart for that, and we're going to do what we can to help everybody out by putting people first.
Thank you, Kyle. We will next turn to Melissa. Your 2 minutes, please, Melissa.
Thank you. Well, the New Democrats, we know that it's smart investments now in healthcare that's going to help our people succeed. All the people in our city, across our province. We're committed to making sure that we address mental health, addictions, and all of the services that are needed to help these people living their best life. We know that cutting from these agencies or from these community agencies is always a bad idea. And we know that by putting money back into the families' pockets and making sure that our people who are vulnerable people living with disabilities are supported, that we will be successful. As your MLA, my door will always be open to chat about these issues and which ones are mattering most to you. I'll work hard to listen and be your voice in the legislature on these. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Darcy, your 2 minutes, please.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. The Conservative Party of Saskatchewan, what we want to do is end hallway health care by creating 1,500 new long-term care health beds over 5 years. Also, for people living with disabilities, we want to introduce legislation that prevents elderly people from being separate in long-term care. So with people that are struggling, we would also want to take away the PST for people that have already been taxed on on things like vehicles. So if they're looking to purchase another vehicle or a vehicle that has that is capable to be able to drive with someone that has a disability, that the PST is eliminated on that. We are wanting to make healthcare affordable and also make it that people are available to care for people with disabilities so that they are able to look after them. With the conservative health plan, it is something that is attainable and available. Thank you.
Thank you, Darcy. Tim, you will be the final comments on this question. When you're ready, please.
Thanks, Chris. I was encouraged to hear that the NDP have a plan to develop a disability strategy because that's a good idea. That's why the Saskatchewan Party did that in 2015. They made a disability strategy in consultation with the disability community. So that work has already been done. It provides a framework for the government to offer an array of programs and services across all ministries that support people with disabilities, helping to make Saskatchewan the best place in Canada for people with disabilities to live. Fast forward to 2019 and the speech from the throne, where the Saskatchewan Party government announced that we will introduce new legislation aiming at removing and preventing accessibility barriers. The new Accessibility Act will look at the design of public spaces, information and communications, customer service standards, service animal certification, public sector procurement and employment, and public transportation, all with the view of removing and preventing accessibility barriers. Further, in partnership with community-based organizations, important services and programs were delivered in communities across the province already. In 2020-2021 budget, the Saskatchewan Party funded the CBOs to the tune of $213.9 million, which is a $155 million increase over those services in 2007-2008. So the Saskatchewan Party government is proud of our record in providing supports for people with disabilities and allowing them to have the best quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you to the candidates for answering that question. Just a reminder to those watching from home, we have a couple of different ways that you can submit your questions for the candidates. One is on Facebook. The other is on our YouTube page. But of course, you can always text us. You'll notice at the bottom of your screen, 306-690-7100, which seems to be quite popular tonight. We're getting quite the stack of questions here. So building off of the question with disability and vulnerable sector in Saskatchewan, we will continue on with the question, what will your party do to promote suicide prevention? Once again, what will your party do to promote suicide prevention? And we will begin with Greg, please.
Thanks for that question, Chris. What we did this spring, back in March, is we introduced Pillars for Life. Now, the Pillars for Life had 7 points in it that we are in the process of eliminating. And Premier Scott Moe, our leader, talked about it last night in our supports that we've already put in place to eliminate that. Last year, we put an extra $30 million into mental health supports and addiction supports. This year, we put $30 million into an extra $30 million into mental health and addiction support. And like we said, there's more work to be done. It is the largest mental health portion of the budget that has ever been there. We're putting the supports in place. We're working with our northern partners. We're getting, instead of closing hospital beds like the NDP did, we just opened 14 new beds down in Estevan that were closed under the former NDP government for mental health and addictions. Now, we finally got the two working together where it is, because sometimes it's an addiction problem, sometimes it's a mental health problem, sometimes it's both. So we've got everybody working together on the same page, putting the supports in place to make sure that we can help these folks out.
Thank you, Greg. Kyle, your 2 minutes when you're ready, please.
Okay, well, hello again, and thank you for that question. You know, mental health is a very, very important thing, and especially suicide prevention. Yeah, I visited Tristan DeRoche as he was outside having his fast for 44 days outside of the legislative buildings. I went down there and I saw the pictures of all of the people that we've lost in our province, you know, to the suicide pandemic. And it's really troubling. What's troubling is that the Sask Party is sticking to this Pillars to Life plan, but at the same time, 44 of our MLAs voted against a suicide prevention legislation act. That doesn't compute for me. We need to support people, and we have a plan for that. We're going to open badly needed dedicated mental health emergency rooms in Saskatoon, Regina, Prince Albert, and Moose Jaw. In fact, in Prince Albert, I was just reading that there was funding cut to mental health for youth. They cut the youth mental health beds in Prince Albert, and that doesn't seem like the right direction. But I'm not governing yet. So we want to also fund an opioid and crystal meth strategy, starting with a $2 million investment. We know that that's plaguing us here in Moose Jaw. We want to invest $5 million in a suicide prevention strategy and increase addiction treatment support to enable Saskatchewan Health Authority and community-based organizations to hire more staff, because we know that we can lift each other up. When we lift each other up, we all rise up. So let's do that together. Let's put people first.
Thank you, Kyle. Melissa, please.
Thank you. While just building on to what Kyle has already stated, I would have to remind us that the Saskatchewan New Democrats introduced a suicide prevention bill last June, which was defeated by all 44 members of the Saskatchewan Party. You know, we introduced this bill to tackle the suicide crisis that is gripping our province, especially in the north, our Indigenous youth, children between the ages of 10 and 14. Think about that. I have 2 daughters that are in that age group that could have easily been part of that statistic. But disturbingly, it was the Sask Party that voted unanimously against that bill. All 44 members of them. I can't stress this enough. It's unbelievable that this government wouldn't be able to overcome partisan differences for a necessary step like this. They lay on their part pillars of faith, whatever, but the truth is suicide has tragically and continues to tragically impact so many of Saskatchewan people, families, and communities. We need a government that actually takes this seriously by introducing legislation that would include much needed funding for mental health and addictions and a suicide prevention strategy. I mean, we're losing people every day. We can't not do this, plain and simple. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Darcy, please.
Thank you. Melissa is right. In the north, suicide is a major issue and needs to be taken care of. What the Conservative Party will do is Northern mental health hubs provide ongoing services by building 2 hubs. We will build 2 hubs in northern communities in collaboration with the First Nation and Métis communities. That will help and hopefully alleviate suicide in the north. It's been an ongoing problem, and the Sask Party has not done anything to fix the problem. I cannot believe that they voted down what the NDP was introducing, but that is an ongoing issue, and it does need to be rectified, and needs to be rectified as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Darcy. Tim, your 2 minutes when you're ready, please.
Okay, thank you. Suicide prevention is absolutely an important issue for all of us. That's without question. That doesn't mean that we need a bill or a law passed to address it. We need action. and the Sask Party is doing that. Ms. Patterson, you called it the pillars of whatever. It's the pillars of life plan, and that's kind of the critical part of the whole plan. So the Sask Party is focusing on life and on suicide prevention, and particularly in the north, where investments to the tune of $213 million in targeted investments to Indigenous communities in the north have already been committed by the Sask Party government. $500,000 to expand the remote presence technology program in the communities of Stony Rapids, La Loche, English River Dene Nation, Pelican Narrows, Fond du Lac, Clearwater River Dene Nation, and Hatchet Lake. $372,000 went to the Enhanced Preventative Dental Service Program to help support oral and dental care. $100,000 to Diabetes Initiative. $700,000 to improve access to kidney health and dialysis for residents in the north. The funding to the northern communities and the support that we provide the northern communities has been demonstrated time and time again. And the Pillars for Life is just one more example of the Sask Party government's commitment to address a very serious issue. And I guess I would just reiterate that having a bill or a law to address it doesn't change anything. Having a plan that the Sask Party government has put into action is what matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. And North Hunter, would you please close debate on this question? What will your party do to promote suicide prevention?
The Green Party believes in a legislated suicide prevention plan. The Pillars of Life has been deemed inadequate by all experts. What we have is that we want to make sure that not only does people who are raising awareness about suicide prevention, such as Tristan Durache, who went to court actually by Scott Moe and Sask Party. He took them to court. You're trying to bury an issue that has to do with life, that has nothing to do with Pillars of Life, and is barely keeping our life above ground. We want to make sure is that suicide prevention becomes not just something that we're thinking about whenever people are raising awareness of it by being brought to court. We want to make sure that this is a high priority because there's a crisis right now. We want to make sure that the Green Party doesn't believe in just having Medicare for all. We believe in having healthcare for all, and included in that healthcare plan for all is a mental health care plan for all. We believe in not just dental care for all. We believe in pharmacare for all. We believe that everyone deserves mental health support. We want to make sure that everyone's basic needs are met, because if you have no hope for your present, why would you have hope for your future? If you cannot even think that you are going to survive in the present because you do not have access to clean water, you don't have access to shelter, you do not have access to a job, you don't have access to anything that will make you want to live, then of course you're not going to want to live. We want to make sure that those needs are met, and that is a high priority, because no one should ever have to think that they deserve to be buried because they are not being looked after and cared for. No one deserves to die because they do not think that they have anything left to live for.
Thank you. Thank you for the responses to that question, and we have had a flood of questions, so thank you very much to everybody who is following us on the Moose Jaw District Chamber of Commerce Facebook page, as well as to the YouTube Live page. It's been fantastic. The text line has been very busy as well. Unfortunately, this will have to be our last question. We're already over time, but we're going to have this question anyhow. This was a question that was submitted to us in advance, and so the question is, Moose Jaw has been experiencing a rather soft labor market in recent years. A loss of high-paying industrial-type jobs has resulted in more residents looking for work outside of the city or even moving completely. What ideas or plans does your party have to help Moose Jaw grow into the future when it comes to employment? And for this question, we'll start with Kyle, please. I'll read it one more time. What ideas or plans do your party have to help Moose Jaw grow into the future when it comes to employment? Kyle, please.
Well, you know, I talked about jobs in my intro and how important provincial jobs are. As an investor, I know how important it is to bring more jobs, more business into our city. One of the things that keeps coming up on the doorstep is everybody is applauding the NDP plan for Sask First. When we're building our public infrastructure, when we're doing the power plant that's coming, when we're building the new school on South Hill, when we're even changing the light bulbs out in front to LED, we need to make sure it's Moose Jaw contractors and the tradespeople, the qualified tradespeople of Saskatchewan that need to be getting those jobs. We can't afford to have that driving away anymore. We've seen it with the power plant in Swift Current. Less than 44% of the jobs in Swift Current power plant were Saskatchewan jobs. We're bringing in people from out of province. We've seen it with the bypass. We see people driving away with our public dollars, and that's not sustainable. We need to be bringing in new industry to our city. We could have a brewery, we could have a distillery, a greenhouse industry here in the, and think at one point we were talking about having a solar farm and investing in green energy, but where's that gone? Our leadership hasn't taken us down that road. We need fresh new ideas. Melissa and I are going to be a great team for Moose Jaw. We're going to advocate, we're going to walk the talk, and we're going to be good advocates for Moose Jaw and put people first. So
thank you, Kyle. Melissa, your 2 minutes, please.
Well, I would reiterate everything that Kyle's already said, but especially highlighting the Saskatchewan New Democrats plan to bring us a Sask First procurement policy. I've talked to so many people on the doorsteps that are just so saddened and disheartened to see good jobs going to anywhere but here, anyone but our own people. So knowing that we have a plan and a policy in place that will make sure our workers are getting paid to do our work, keeping our money in our local economies, what could be better? Also really excited about our $15 an hour minimum wage increase and the plan to support small businesses here in our communities as they go through that transition, to make sure that, again, we're supporting our own people in our own communities and building our own economies. It's times like these that we know that we have to do better. And the status quo of Scott Moe just isn't working anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Darcy, it is your 2 minutes, please.
Thank you. We need to promote Moose Jaw. This is one of the most beautiful cities in the province. First, we have to get the industries back here to Saskatchewan. Unfortunately, the Sask Party hasn't been kind to industry over the years, unless it finds you useful. They definitely haven't been kind to construction with the signing of the 2010 New West Trade Partnership Agreement. This agreement damaged and hurt trades jobs, construction jobs, and supply service jobs. In fact, it took until 2017 for the conservative province next door, Manitoba, to sign on to this agreement, and it wasn't until caveats were added before they signed on to it. The Sask Party and Moe signed on immediately. With a conservative government, you have our commitment that this would be the first thing that would be scrapped when we form government. As your MLA for Moose Jaw, I would be the first one promoting the city of Moose Jaw and advertising for the city of what it has to offer. A feeling of home, the feeling of family, the feeling of knowing that this city is the city that welcomes you. Feeling every time I am there, I get that feeling. It offers cheaper taxes, property that is selling below fair market value. So Moose Jaw, you have great city, absolutely. Not only for the people to come back to by scrapping this deal, but for head offices and new corporations, so they may look at Moose Jaw as a possible home for a place to call home. Thank you.
Thank you, Darcy. Next will be Tim McLeod. We'll repeat the question. Moose Jaw has been experiencing a rather soft labor market in recent years. A loss of high-paying industrial-type jobs has resulted in more residents looking for work outside of the city or even moving completely. What ideas or plans does your party have to help Moose Jaw grow into the future when it comes to employment? Tim, please.
Thank you. The Sask Party government already has a community benefits plan that is implemented in local procurement contracts. I know the NDP candidates want to sell to everybody that they have fresh new ideas, but the reality is that's an old idea that the Sask Party is already using. And I would remind voters that in 500 procurements last year, $466 million worth of jobs were procured, and 410 million of the 466 was awarded to local Saskatchewan companies. So those community benefits clauses in our contracts are already working, and pardon me, and that's what the Saskatchewan Party has already demonstrated and will continue to demonstrate. In terms of new future growth and employment opportunity, I would point to the irrigation project that the Saskatchewan Party government recently announced, the Lake Diefenbaker irrigation expansion. That is going to be a huge boost to the Moose Jaw economy, to benefit to the entire province of Saskatchewan. There's $85 billion going to be contributed to the GDP just from that project alone over its lifetime. $23.5 billion increase in personal incomes over the life of that project. So those are just a couple of things that the Sask Party is already doing to help grow the future when it comes to employment.
Thank you, Tim. North Hunter, when you're ready, please.
I'd like to remind everyone about the Manhattan Carbon Countdown Clock. We have less than 7 years. It is no longer 14 years. We have less than 7 years to make sure we transition away from fossil fuels, but that means a fair and just transition. The Green Party will not leave oil and gas workers or any of our high-skilled laborers unemployed or even worried about work. This will mean a vast amount of work that will need to be done. We're actually looking at a labor shortage because absolutely everyone will need to come on board. Every single vehicle, every single home, all of our appliances, everything will need to go towards renewable energy so that no one is left stranded on a dwindling pile of resources that will never grow bigger and will only continue to dwindle. What we want is a resource amount that will never go extinct. We want to make sure that we will never go extinct. And that means that absolutely everyone that can work must work because we care about you and we want to make sure that not only can you work, but you will continue to work into the future. We have to get down to making sure that our emissions go down by 60% within 4 years and 100% within 10 years. That means huge job creation. It is not a job loss. It'll mean that absolutely everyone who is unemployed will be employed because we need you and we need your work, and there will be no shortage of labor as far as the Green Party plan is going forward. It is mission possible. That is our plan. And it may seem like a utopia, but that is exactly what we plan to do.
Thank you. The final response will be from Greg Lawrence.
I just want to expand a little bit on Tim's notes here that he spoke of. With community benefits involved right in the bidding process and how that works, some of the NDP candidates have pointed out that out of province people work on these projects. There is nobody in Saskatchewan that can build a generator. There is nobody in Saskatchewan that can build a turbine. Those are actually usually imported from overseas, and then the experts have to put those together. Now, when you talk to the mayor of Swift Current, $450 million went into that city, right into that city of local businesses with the people working on that project. When they build the gas plant here, that type of investment is going to come into our city. When we build the school here, that type of investment is going to come into this city. And I want to just point out a little fact. I used to work for a Crown Corporation, and the minister for SaskTel was actually from town here. And when we did the first upgrade for Max, they hired a company from Ontario. So when you take a look at the NDP's record of closing schools and hospitals and long-term care beds and hiring out-of-province companies to work for our Crown corporations when we would have been able to do it ourselves, that's what they're going to do in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you to all of the candidates for following along with the questions this evening and giving us your honest answers. We appreciate also your patience with technology. It is the time of the pandemic as we learn the new platforms out there. For those of you watching at home, due to some of those glitches, maybe your feed wasn't as good as you feel it could be. This broadcast is being recorded and will be available on the Moose Jaw District Chamber of Commerce Facebook page, as well as the Moose Jaw District Chamber of Commerce YouTube page. So maybe you came in late, maybe you missed the question that you wanted to ask, maybe it was answered earlier. So please go back and watch the broadcast before Election Day if you get the opportunity. Of course, I want to thank the candidates for taking part in the comments and question period, but we would now like to wrap up the event this evening with our closing remarks. As we mentioned off the top, we did a draw for the spots, and that's what we've been following tonight. We will now reverse that order, starting with Tim McLeod. Tim, your closing comments, please, that are 3 minutes in length.
Okay, thanks, Chris. I guess I just want to start my closing comments by reiterating my thanks to yourself and the Moose Jaw Chamber for hosting this event and for the opportunity for myself and my fellow candidates. In closing, I guess I'd reiterate a bit of a story that that comes to mind, because over the last several weeks and months, we've been knocking literally thousands of doors. And my team and I were out knocking doors earlier this week. And I came upon a lady who asked me why I would want to leave a successful legal practice to get into politics. And she said it with a bit of a chuckle, but without a doubt, this is the question that I have received the most since becoming the candidate for the Sask Party. My answer is quite simple. I'm doing this because I sincerely enjoy helping people. That's why I spent 8 years as a school board trustee on Prairie South School Board. That's why I became a lawyer in the first place. I want to help people solve problems and address their concerns where they're not otherwise able to do so on their own. I see the two professions as being quite similar. In fact, I honestly believe that my skill set from one makes me a better option for the other. There is a distinction to be made, however, between my legal career and my political one. As a lawyer, I was generally only representing one person at a time. And unfortunately, the reality is they had to pay a fee for my service. As the candidate and hopeful MLA for Moose Jaw North, I'm able to represent all of the people in my constituency. And the fee for my service is your vote. That's all I require. So I'm asking each of you to entrust me with that vote. And in return, you'll have my faithful service for the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Darcy Jensen, please, with your 3 minutes closing remarks.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, fellow candidates. Moose Jaw is a beautiful city, and it had always been my home. It is true that the Sask Party has grown too large and out of touch. Saskatchewan's NDP opposition is ineffective and fails to hold the Sask Party mega spending in check. With the Sask Party and the NDP as opposition, we have witnessed since 2017 a flat employment record in the province. The recent COVID pandemic aside, a scan of job numbers showed that from March 2017 to March 2018, there were only 900 jobs added in Saskatchewan, and that was from Statistics Canada. Employment numbers have actually been relatively flat since the spring of 2016, as reported in a CBC News post from April 6, 2018. These numbers continue with the Sask Party government until the present time, according to the Regina Leader Post in a July 10, 2020 article. We may have had some good news as employment rebounds by 30,000 in Saskatchewan. This would have been good news if the Saskatchewan economy was still down by 30,000 jobs from the previous year. Not to mention when the Sask Party released their platform, we have a deficit of $2.1 million as a whole. Oh, $2.1 billion, I'm sorry. Understand this is a government that has gone from having money in the bank and a rainy day fund to having a deficit of $2.1 billion as of October 9th, 2020. How has a political party done this and still maintain support? Of knowing one another, it still has a welcome home feeling in Moose Jaw every time I'm there. A Conservative government will reinstate the film tax credit. By forming government, the Sask Party killed the industry when they destroyed the film tax credit, and along with destroying the industry, they have forced many families to relocate to other provinces. The Conservative leadership in Manitoba has seen about $1.2 billion worth of production in Manitoba. There is no reason why a lot of the businesses couldn't be taking place in Moose Jaw and Saskatchewan as it once did. As your MLA in Moose Jaw Wakamow, I would commit to fighting for the film tax credit to be reinstated and bring back an industry that should never have been taken away. Conservative government will also introduce a manufacturing tax credit to encourage manufacturing to take place in Saskatchewan, but providing a business tax credit incentive. More goods produced locally will create a strong economy and more jobs. This would be a huge objective for myself, and Moose Jaw Wakamow would be to commit to having a manufacturing job stay in Moose Jaw, and we would hire locally. Whether people are working from their homes due to the pandemic or working in an assembly plant, I want Moose Jaw to be a city to continue to prosper.
Thank you for your time, Darcy. That is your 3 minutes. We will now move on to Melissa Patterson, please, with your 3-minute closing remarks.
Thank you. Well, I just want to close with this. I think the choice before voters here in Moose Jaw Wakamow is pretty clear. This election is really about who will stand up for Moose Jaw. Who's going to stand up for us? I'm here to put Moose Jaw and our people first. Unfortunately, my Sask Party opponent, Greg Lawrence, can't say the same thing. When the Sask Party sold off the STC here in Moose Jaw, Greg Lawrence let it happen. He also voted to cut provincial funding to the Wakamow Valley Park. He sat silently by as the provincial government let jobs leave our city. Let's think SaskTel, Moose Jaw's SaskTel call center closed and all those jobs moved to Regina. The Ministry of Environment offices shuttered to the public. Sask Power and Sask Energy offices closed and closed. Now, Scott Moe and Greg Lawrence are running on deep cuts to our healthcare and education, whether they say it or not. These are bad ideas anytime, but during a pandemic, they're especially downright dangerous. Isn't it time for Moose Jaw Wakamow to have an MLA who will stand up for our community, who will have a voice when things like the STC is going to go, who will fight to make sure that good government jobs stay here in our city? I think so. That's why this time I'm asking for your vote so that you can have an MLA who will stand up and be that voice for you and your family. As I've mentioned before, I've never been one that's been accused of being quiet, and I don't intend to start now. Thank you. I'm Melissa Patterson, your Sask NDP candidate for Moose Jaw Wakamow.
Thank you, Melissa. We are now on to Kyle, please, with your 3-minute closing statement.
Thank you. Thank you so much to all the candidates here tonight. Thank you for the chamber for hosting this. It's different, but it's good. It's good for us to chat and so important to democracy. You know, I am going to be a hard worker for Moose Jaw. I'm going to be an advocate, your voice. I've done it time and time again for students every day in the classroom. I'm looking out for their best interests. And, you know, from the classroom, I see lots of different realities. Not everything's rainbows and lollipops for everybody here in Moose Jaw, and there's people suffering. We need to stand up. We need to do better for our neighbors. You know, even before the pandemic, we were having problems. So the people were suffering. And we can't let that go on. And as I said in my opening remarks, we were going through this difficult time, and we've faced tough times before, but we can do better than what the Sask Party has offered us. You know, I'll use the bypass, for example. $1.2 billion over budget on the bypass. And then, interestingly enough, they raised the PST by 1%. That covered $1.2 billion. So every time we're buying anything and we get charged that 1% extra, we're paying for their mistakes. We can't afford any more of that. We can't afford their cuts. Their cuts are a bad idea at any time, but right now they're extra dangerous. You know, and we know we have problems in our schools, whether we're underfunded. We need more support to meet the kids' needs. Even Tim said in a recent interview that we didn't receive a meaningful increase to our funding, and that we're doing our best work that we can with the funding. That's less than previous years. He said that we're applying a Band-Aid to where surgery is required. We need to make the necessary investments in education to do better for our future generations. We don't have to accept the status quo. Saskatchewan people do have a choice between two parties, one who offers cuts and privatization of our crowns, or us who will invest in people. That's your choice, Moose Jaw. I need your vote because I know we can do better. We can put people first.
Thank you, Kyle. Greg Lawrence, your 3 minutes, please.
Well, again, I want to thank all the candidates for coming tonight and taking part in this. And yeah, it is an exercise in democracy, and let's talk about that a little bit. Part of democracy is actually being accurate in the facts you state. I'm going to start with our provincial party government is really proud of our record investment into the education in our province. Our funding for K-12 education has increased 37% since 2007. It was 1.41 billion in 2007 and 1.94 billion this year. In the same period of time, enrollment has only increased by 15%. Let's take a look at this and what we did with this. Since forming government, there are over 1,300 additional teachers, 100 more educational assistants, 24% increase in student support teachers, 27% increase in English as an additional language teachers, 70% more counselors, and 47% more speech language pathologists. Just because the other candidates say we cut things, it isn't entirely accurate. We have the lowest unemployment rate in Canada. The Scotiabank confirmed that Saskatchewan is forecast to have the lowest debt to GDP ratio in Canada. Saskatchewan now has a AAA credit rating. What was it under the NDP? Not AAA. Saskatchewan has been able to keep more of our economy going and more people working than any other province. 87% of Saskatchewan workers were able to keep working through the pandemic. Strong communities, a strong economy to provide supports for those who cannot provide for themselves. We're building a new school. We're building a new power plant, mental health support, and 300 new continuing care aid positions. I've represented the people of Moose Jaw for the last 9 years. I've helped a lot of people in my office along with my assistants. I ask the people of Moose Jaw, Wakamow, humbly again for their support to represent them in our capital. When the NDP were here in Moose Jaw, they talked about building a hospital for 17 years. They had a minister, a premier, and a speaker, and they didn't get it done. So the NDP talk a game, they just don't know how to get things done.
Thank you very much, Greg. Concluding the closing remarks this evening will be North Hunter.
Hello, everyone. And thank you, everyone who is in this debate with me for participating. Melissa, Darcy, Kyle, Greg, Tim, Chris. You make me both very, very hopeful for our future and for the future of whatever government I am under, whatever government that everyone in my community is under, and whatever government future generations will be under. But I'm also very scared. I am part of a generation who is more likely to die of climate change than old age. I care deeply about employment right now. I'm scared about not having a job. I'm scared that once I'm done university, that I won't have anything to live for, even beyond jobs too. But I'm also very hopeful too. Because going forward, making sure that all those things are met could mean that we we can go towards a future that seems like a utopia. I mentioned that before, but it's also a utopia that is for realists. Everyone can have their basic needs met, and everyone in Moose Jaw deserves that. It is a community where we can go forward into the future without having to worry that there is not going to be a future to live forward to. We can have guaranteed livable income. No one ever has to be scared to live in poverty. We can have the elimination of poverty. We can have the elimination of unemployment. Everyone's healthcare needs can be met. That is a mission to go forwards to, and as a mission as possible. And that is exactly why it's called Mission Possible for the Green Party. No one should ever have to slip through the cracks. No one in Moose Jaw will ever have to slip through the cracks. What we want to make sure is that going forward, that everyone is able to cooperate, everyone is able to survive. Because I am scared that I'm not even going to be able to live to the minimum age that most people my age, of my gender, should be able to live towards. I honestly don't particularly care who exactly is in government. I want to make sure that I will actually be able to live towards that. I want to make sure that everyone who is my age, who is younger than me, who is older than me, will also be able to have that guaranteed as well. It may seem counterintuitive to consider, but I really want everyone here to think about this, that our most sustainable route is the one that is fiscally responsible. To go forward into a future where we're making sure that the environment is considered, ensures that our future of our people is considered. Everyone's needs can be met, because everyone's needs deserve to be met as well. Think about the War Measures Act, how we virtually eliminated unemployment because people's needs were considered, people's jobs were considered, and we created those jobs to make sure we had a future to look forward to. We faced insurmountable odds, and we overcame them. That is a necessity, and barriers to accessibility need to be overcome because those barriers should not be barriers anymore. All they are doing is hindering our progress into the future, and our future depends on it.
Thank you, North. That is your 3 minutes. Again, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight for the Moose Jaw District Chamber of Commerce Provincial Election Forum. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, this will be available for reviewing on not only the Moose Jaw District Chamber of Commerce Facebook page, but it will also be on our YouTube page. Please feel free to share it to whomever you feel needs this information to make a decision in this election. I want to specifically thank the candidates who were able to take part in the event this evening and for even considering letting your name stand in the election. It is a large commitment that has an impact on your personal life, and I'd like to thank you for that. As well, thank you to Heather and Rob with the Chamber office for their behind-the-scenes work leading up to the presentation this evening. Just a reminder that election day is Monday, October 26th, so please watch your mailbox for voter information, including where and when your local polling station will be open. We would encourage you to do your research and vote for the candidate that best represents your family, as well as your vision for the city of Moose Jaw and the province of Saskatchewan. The candidates have published their contact information on their websites, and I'm sure they would love to have your follow-up questions. I'm Chris Rasmussen, and this has been the Moose Jaw District Chamber of Commerce Provincial Election Political Forum. Good night, and remember to vote.